Jackson Arnold is an Auburn Tiger. News has broken. I'm here with my guy C Dub early on a Saturday morning talking Auburn football. Caesar, it has happened. Auburn has signed, presumably their quarterback for next year. And Jackson Arnold, the former five-star quarterback, joins the Auburn Tigers from the Oklahoma Sooners. Let's get into it. I want to thank everybody for joining us this Saturday morning to talk a little Auburn football. Uh, Initial thoughts, man. My thought on this one was I'm not sure this is the home run that they needed to hit, but certainly I think the potential is still there. This is a former five-star guy.
Yeah. Talented kid, man. Talented kid. Followed Jeff Levy to Oklahoma. We can talk about what happened last year, but again, this kid has a high ceiling. Hugh Freeze and them were very high on this kid. Uh, Hugh Freeze got his guy, Mike. He's got his guy for 2025. And there's some pieces here at Auburn that he has to throw to. He has a great receiving core that he can throw the ball to. So again, this is Auburn is doing what it needs to do in the offseason to rebuild its offense for 2025.
What hit struck me was, is this the same methodology? Like, hey, with the receivers we have, if we surround this guy with great guys, we'll see a very good Jackson Arnold. Now, last year, he threw for 1,400 yards on the season at 62.6%. But it was well documented the struggles that Oklahoma had when they came to visit Jordan. They had so many people out of that game. It was a wonder that Auburn lost that one. As a matter of fact, I believe, looking back at the schedule, he didn't even get the start versus Auburn last year when they
No,
played.
he had got benched the week or following the Tennessee game. They started. He got benched. Didn't even play the whole game. So Auburn never faced off against this kid. So we didn't get to see firsthand Jackson Arnold's talent or what he was capable of. But I think at Oklahoma, Mike, they had some clear issues systemically, right?
Mm,
Seth Littrell, the offensive coordinator there, didn't even last a full season. As we know, Jeff Levy, the previous offensive coordinator, took the Mississippi State job. So there were issues there on the offensive side of the ball for Oklahoma, similar to what we've seen at Auburn. So I think that can't go without being said if we're going to talk about some of Jackson Arnold's struggles. He was managed pretty well over the course of the back half of the season. Didn't even throw a single interception, Mike. 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, as you alluded to, 1,400 yards. There's a lot of question marks around how is he going to do at Auburn, and I think that's the thing that fans are curious to see.
yeah, I agree. Look, there's going to be some questions here about Jackson Arnold. As you guys know, we love statistics here at the War Report. Some questions about his deep ball. Last year, he was 2 of 13 deep outside right, 3 of 9 deep middle, and 2 of 8 deep outside left. Not great numbers, Caesar,
Seven
on the
of
deep ball.
30, 7 of 30 total. In terms of deep ball, 20 yards or greater. That was his completion percentage or for deep balls.
Yeah,
Again, who is he throwing the ball to at Oklahoma? Does that
nobody.
change?
Yeah.
Does that change here at Auburn?
Mm. Yeah, it seems like, again, following the same methodology that they followed with Peyton Thorne. Now, is Jackson Arnold, a better player than Peyton Thorne? That's the question I think that most fans are going to ask. Does he raise the floor? Does he give you a safe floor? The numbers don't suggest that.
Right.
Uh, However, the talent could still be there. Obviously, they see something. I think talent evaluation has been kind of the bane of this staff's existence at Auburn at the quarterback position. Behind him now, you presumably have a quarterback room with Deuce Knight. You've got Jackson Arnold and you've got Walker White. So we'll see if that QB room holds for now. Now, there was a lot of talk about Ashton Daniels coming in from Stanford, but he would be presumably a depth piece if he hit the plains. So we'll see where they decide to go there. How different does this look at Auburn is a question that I have in my mind. From what
Mhm.
they ran at Oklahoma, Hugh Freeze liked to throw the ball a lot, and I wonder if Jackson Arnold is prepared for the volume that he'll get. He started out versus Temple, 25 attempts, 17 of 25 for only 141 yards. Um, Houston, 19 of 32 for 174 yards, two touchdowns. Tulane, 18 of 29 for 169 yards. As a matter of fact, he only broke 200 yards passing twice last season.
Mhm.
Um, and now, again, they had lots of injuries there, and I think that that's the thing that fans can maybe look at to say, all right, maybe stats don't tell the whole story on Jackson Arnold last year.
I mean, it's part of the story, right? It's definitely a part of the story. But again, this was a much maligned offense for Oklahoma last year. They had issues up front with the offensive line. He didn't have a lot of even running backs, Mike. Like there were injuries all over for this team. They just had issues offensively, and so while you do have to consider how he played at times for Oklahoma, you have to also consider how everyone else around him played. So you that does play a factor coming into Auburn is making sure that he's surrounded by talent. Again, you still got some work to do in the portal, Mike. You got to address left tackle. You got to address your tackle situation moving forward. If you don't want to have a repeat of what we saw with Jackson Arnold in Oklahoma last year, Auburn still got some work to do up front. You have to hope that with a more stable situation in terms of you don't have an offensive coordinator going out the door mid-season. At least you hope you don't have that in 2025 with Auburn. You got guys like Cam Coleman. Obviously, Auburn's still looking for to add a receiver in the portal, but you still got some key guys like Malcolm Simmons that this guy can throw the ball to. I'm thinking that this situation should be better for him. We saw a better situation for Peyton Thorne in year two, but so you hope that there's a jump in his performance from last year to next year with Auburn.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's going to be, I think, interesting. I want to get to some comments here. These impromptu live streams are about you guys and how you feel. So we've given our thoughts here. Let's get to some comments. Caesar Daniel Denny says people are saying Mendoza is better than Arnold. Mendoza was a name. Fernando Mendoza. We all know him, the Cal quarterback that came and did some things to Auburn. Uh, what do you think about Arnold over Mendoza? Is this another Diego Pavia situation where Auburn should have given the presumably lesser kid a look? And does this maybe come back to bite him when they go he goes to another school and tears it up?
I'll say this. I think just about every QB that's currently in the transfer portal came with question marks, in my opinion. I think Mendoza is the better passer than Arnold, in my opinion, but I don't know if he's a better fit. I think what we're beginning to see, Mike G, is Hugh Freeze absolutely has a type of QB. There's a certain type of QB that he's going for in his system. We've got to remember Malik Murphy was just at Auburn earlier this week, and I think he's a better passer than Jackson Arnold. However, there's question marks around Malik Murphy as it pertains to his mobility as the type of QB that Hugh Freeze wants to run. You got to remember, as decisive as Mendoza is, Auburn had a QB in this room that was just as decisive in Hank Brown,
Mm,
right? But Hank Brown came with his fair share of question marks due to his lack of mobility compared to a Peyton Thorne. So it's obvious to me that Hugh Freeze is looking for a QB with certain mobility that I don't think Mendoza particularly demonstrated. In the second half, we talk about what Mendoza did in the first half against Auburn. What we don't
mm.
talk about is what happened in the second half when Auburn began to put pressure on him. He didn't demonstrate a lot of mobility in that game. Obviously, he's very decisive, likes to get the ball out of his hands, and you like that part about Mendoza. But when plays break down and you need to extend plays, I don't know if Mendoza has shown enough to me or to this coaching staff that he's a perfect fit for this offense.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed. It's going to be again interesting to see how this one pans out. Fans will certainly be vocal all year about this signing. Same differences says this was the plan all along. The school released a hype video and had Freeze talking about him and clips of Arnold wearing an Auburn jacket. I hope this all works out. War Damn Eagle. Was Jackson Arnold the plan the whole time?
Ah, I don't know. I don't know. You probably can speak to that better than I can. I just know that this wasn't a situation where, if you remember 2 years ago, Auburn was trying to get the kid. What was that kid that ended up going to NC State? I can't think of his name. It's escaping me now, but he couldn't come to Auburn due to grades, and it just felt like with Peyton Thorne that Auburn never really got its number one guy. I don't get that feeling this time around, Mike. You know what I mean? I just don't get that feeling that Auburn missed out on its guy because they only had two QB, Grayson McCall. Appreciate that, chat. Uh, Auburn, Auburn only had two guys to visit, Mike, since the
Yeah,
portal opened. So it wasn't a situation where you felt like Auburn missed on its guy. Malik Murphy didn't leave with an offer. So the feeling here is that Auburn got who they wanted, right? And so I think that this potentially could have been the plan. Obviously, you have to factor in who uh, is not in the portal, who the coaching staff would hope to get in the portal, and I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that.
right. Right. Yeah. It's gonna, like I said, it's then when they got Peyton Thorne, they came out and said it was Peyton all along. I don't think anybody believed that, but again, we'll
No,
see what
I
fans
didn't believe
believe
that.
here on social media. Cameron Carr says War Eagle. At first, I wasn't for it, but after truly looking at how bad Oklahoma was depleted on offense and how he could have done much better with a better supporting group around him, I don't think that the depletion on offense can be ignored. This was Oklahoma was on like plan F offensively by the time they got to Auburn.
Mm, mm. Yeah, again, this was a very problematic offense last year, Mike. They ran into a fair share of issues, and again, moving forward, Oklahoma has a lot of question marks on their side of the ball. They hired a new OC, John Mateer, who's a name that a lot of fans threw out as someone who they would like Hugh Freeze to go out and get. He still hasn't made a decision whether or not he's going to enter the transfer portal, Mike. Um, it is believed that he was going to follow his offensive coordinator from Washington State to Oklahoma. But even if you bring him in, you still got question marks along the offensive front with their line, receivers. Like they have a lot of work to do at Oklahoma. And it shows statistically in terms of how they performed throughout the year last year. That was a big part of why they lost a lot of games, Mike, is because they just didn't have the offense. The defense has taken huge steps under Brent Venables, but offensively, they have a lot of work to do. And I just don't know, given the issues that they had there, that a QB, one player was going to transform everything. You just hope that this QB, and I think the question that a lot of people have with this QB, Mike, is they want to know, like in year three, Hugh Freeze has to have a winning season. He has to win at least 7 or 8 games. Is this a guy who can come in and cover a multitude of sins on Auburn's offensive side of the ball? Right. There's been questions about play calling. There's been concerns about the offensive line. Can he come in and raise the floor for Auburn's offense? That
Yeah.
remains to be seen. I don't know if he raised the floor at Oklahoma. He did get benched at a certain point in the season last year. So there's concerns there and question marks there. But uh, this coaching staff believe he's a fit. They went and got their guy. It doesn't appear as though they swung and missed on anyone in particularly. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of names being floated out there, only a lot of viable names as far as the coaching staff is concerned. TWK says he fits the system. He runs better than some of the other QBs being mentioned. It will be interesting to see if he shines with a better offensive line and playmakers. Now, when they say he fits the system, this is a lot of talk about the RPO. Ike mentions all the time that maybe running in an RPO, the ability to run in an RPO is overvalued by a lot of people. Last year, when you look at Jackson Arnold's stats here, pulling up his game log, he rushed for 444 yards. He averaged 3 yards per carry, at touchdowns on the ground, 150 attempts on the season. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I don't know. I don't know if he's going to run that much here at Auburn. I'm not sure. Peyton Thorne didn't run a lot last year, right? I think that was a more of an ideal scenario for Peyton Thorne not to run as much. I'm curious if they adopt the same approach with Jackson Arnold in 2025. Obviously, he's going to be asked to run some, Mike, as a part of the RPO, but I think the goal there is uh, to have him more so standing upright, throwing the ball, and making decisions as to where to go with the football, as opposed to pulling it and being a focal point of the run game. I could be wrong there, but I'm curious to see how Hugh Freeze uses him.
Let's move on here. Lots of comments. We appreciate you everybody for joining the live stream. Alphaholic says tinfoil hat. He's the backup, and they are waiting for Quinn Ewers to finish out at Texas and hop in the portal. I don't know about this one.
I don't know about it
Appreciate that
either.
comment. Robert Guy says not excited at all. Don't think he is better than the two we have. When will this nightmare end? If this doesn't work out, it might end at the end of next season. So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you can miss 3 years in a row at that position. Although I will say I don't think they missed last year with Peyton Thorne. By the numbers, he would have been a 3,000 yard passer had they not benched him, Caesar, against New Mexico and half of Arkansas. The percentages held true. Uh, he probably would have thrown for probably close to 30 touchdowns. I don't I think that system is the issue over players, and I've been screaming that since Hugh Freeze arrived on the plains, and I have not seen anything that's changed my mind since then.
If
Um,
we're going to believe that it is truly system, then you can understand Robert's comment here, right? Is that does he come in and raise the floor given the assuming the systemic issues don't get addressed in the offseason, right? Assuming that things remain the same, is this the guy to come in and raise the floor given those systemic issues, Mike?
right,
Don't know.
right, right. So it's just it's interesting. This is all interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. Let's move on here. Um, Justin the Juke says we picked a guy who gets kicked out of the program versus a guy who is stepping up in competition. I don't know that I have any information that says that they processed
No,
him out.
I don't think so
Um,
either.
but again, I'm sure that we'll hear about that in the coming days. Let's jump to some super chats here. I appreciate everybody for commenting. Bubba and the old man with the 199 super chat. We appreciate you. I like Arnold, but knowing we passed on Murphy, a lot of people liked Murphy. I liked Murphy. He wasn't much of a runner, but I thought he threw a really good deep ball and could get the ball to these receivers down in the field. It is what it is. If I had my pick, maybe, but like I said, I don't know that one was extremely better than the other. To be clear, right? Like so,
Both came with question
Murphy was,
marks.
yeah, he wasn't leaps and bounds better than the other candidates out there. So that's not a hill I'm dying on with Murphy. Um, Robert says Jackson Arnold
Jackson
doesn't
Arnold.
have impressive rushing numbers. Doesn't Hugh Freeze prefer a QB who can run? Uh, I don't think that Oklahoma's offense in general was impressive last year. They gave him the ball 150 times,
Yeah, he ran a
which,
lot. He ran a lot down the stretch of last year. He
yeah,
ran a lot.
I, I, I I mean, for let me just pull this up here. For reference, right? Jarquez Hunter last year ran the ball 187 times. Like our
Wow.
starting running back ran the ball 187 times. That's a lot
Jackson
of
Jackson
rushes.
Arnold against Bama ran the ball for 25. He had 25 rushing attempts against Bama.
That is insane, right? Could
Like
can that result?
that's not happening at Auburn.
Yeah, I don't think Damari Alston would be very happy if that was happening.
Right.
Can they get more yards per carry on fewer carries? That's going to be the question, I think. He just needs to be a threat in the run game. He doesn't need to be the run game, which is 150 carries on the season. That's you got SEC running backs who aren't getting that. Let's move on here. We appreciate the super chat, Robert. Now, another super chat from Bubba and the Old Man 199. Can't ignore the flaws regardless of circumstance. Uh,
Sure.
I get it. You can evaluate him to some extent apart from the circumstances that he played in. The tape doesn't lie. Uh, I don't want to promise this, but I'm going to mention it. We may be working on some all 22 breakdowns for you guys this off season. So if you're not a patron member, I highly recommend that you become a patron because we're going to dig into that all 22 for our members and take a look at what he was up against. Um, so Nina with the super chat, we appreciate this 4.99. I think it is an improvement. I'm sorry, but after watching the fiasco of last year, I think QBs would doubt coming to Auburn. Uh, I this is an appropriate comment, and QB development has been my question. It's something that was promised when Hugh Freeze was hired. Caesar, it was promised that QB development and turning programs around quickly. Auburn has changed their tune on both those things since Hugh Freeze has been hired, preaching patience. And there's been no QB development. I don't know where you could point to any QB development that's been happening since he's been on, since he's been here. So that's certainly a promise that I think that Hugh Freeze needs to deliver on. So Nina, again, we appreciate 4.99. Waiting on something better enters the portal. How do we ended up how we ended up with Peyton Thorne?
Because we
Right.
got Peyton
Yeah.
Thorne in the
Waiting on
second
something
portal
better
window.
to enter the portal is how we ended up with Peyton Thorne, is what she's saying here. Yeah.
And
I
again,
mean,
in fairness though, Grayson McCall was the option in the first portal window, and that didn't work out. And I think they swung and missed on another QB who ended up going, ironically, to NC State. I don't remember that QB's name as
mhm,
well. Auburn went after two QBs and went 0 for 2 for them. We know Grayson McCall couldn't transfer to Auburn, or else he would have been Auburn's QB. There was another QB that they tried to look at who ended up transferring. Maybe he either was already at NC State and transferred from, or went to NC State or went to another school. And I think after that point, Auburn had to take a QB in the second portal window and ended up with Peyton Thorne. But
right.
yes, waiting on a QB doesn't guarantee that you're going to get your guy, to Sonina's point.
Okay. Yeah. Agreed. Let's see here. Super chats are kind of flowing in here, so bear with us, guys. History Black says, "Do you think having SEC experience matters?"
Hmm.
I do think that
It
the
helps.
defenses that he's seen in this conference, I do think it matters. I think
It
having
helps.
SEC experience matters. Now I'm an SEC homer. Everybody knows this. I'm gonna look right into the camera when I say this. The SEC is the best conference in college football. We're better than you, and we know it. So when it comes down to it, if you've done it, I think for both coaches, this is something I said about Kalen DeBoer on the Paul Feinbaum show. It's different out here, man, and he learned that quickly. They missed the playoff in year one with the most talented roster any coach who's ever taken over a team has ever inherited, Caesar, because it's different. This isn't the pack. I asked him that at media days, and he acted like, "Oh, my system works." Okay, buddy, it's only going to get harder from here. Having somebody who is tried and tested, true in the SEC, I think matters at least some. And
Yeah, I
Jackson
think
Arnold has that.
I think an example of someone who transferred from outside of the conference into the conference and has had success recently is Jackson Dart. But for the most part, you see most guys transfer from this conference outside of the conference and have a lot of success. There's a lot of more examples of that than guys coming from outside of the SEC and tearing it up in the SEC, right? I think there's more examples of the other way around than it is. So I do think having SEC experience matters when you're transferring to another P4 school.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, let's move on here. How do you think Auburn balances the fact that more QBs may enter the portal from the playoff? I heard that teams that play after 12/28 still have 5 days after their last game to enter the portal. This is an interesting question, right? If you, what if Auburn's future QB is still playing? Could Auburn have afforded to wait until the end of the playoff and risk the guys signing? You could be left out in the cold, right? If you wait too long, this is a calculus that I think that the coaches had to make. Do we sign our guy now? Do we get him in? You don't have a bowl game. So it's not like you got bowl practices you're trying to get that guy into. He's going to have to start
Right.
in the spring. But what do you think about waiting until after the playoff? I think if they didn't wait, it's because there was a guy there that there was no guy there that they thought was a realistic possibility to come to Auburn.
Or the kid still controls a lot of this. He has to enter the portal, Mike. So the kid could still be deliberating and deciding whether or not he wants to actually transfer from his school that he's attending, right? And so again, as a coaching staff, you need two quarterbacks, Mike. You don't just need one, or you're not just looking for a backup QB. You need a starter and a backup. I don't know if Auburn could afford to wait until 5 days before the portal closes to try to get a guy to visit with them and then sign with them after he transferred within a 5 days time period. I think that's way too risky given what your needs are. And I think you have to move forward with who's in the portal and who best fits your system. And I think it aligned perfectly for Auburn to get the guy that they needed and wanted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it's going to be interesting to see, I think, how this goes. I have so many questions, and I know that the questions are coming. We'll see if we get a winter press conference here.
Mm.
Let's see. JJ Brand, we appreciate him. He's been a member for 37 months. Join the War Report for $5 a month so you can be informed and not embarrass yourself in the chat. JJ Brand, the most prolific commenter of War Report history. We appreciate that, brother. James Lester says, has become a YouTube member. We appreciate that. Again, can't stress enough. Uh, we're going to have all 22 breakdowns here this off season. So we want everybody to be able to check out Jackson Arnold from the all 22. Ike is working hard to get that content out for you guys. Couple more chats here before we give some more thoughts from our end. Hugh just tripled down on an SEC backup. Not sure he survives this one. Oof, man, it's going to be interesting to see. JJ Brand says our offense is heavy RPO. The ideal QB has to have the ability to run. Duh. I don't disagree.
To run it.
To run it. Okay, yeah. Like I don't. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if this is
We'll
is the
see.
right go. The super chats continue to coming in. Robert 499. We appreciate you. This is Jackson Arnold a better game manager than Peyton Thorne? When Peyton came apart in game, the offenses followed suit. Is Jackson Arnold the QB that can keep the offense from imploding? My
And this
question to
this
Robert would be, what game did Peyton Thorne come apart in this year? That's my question. Which game did Peyton just
Cal,
he flubbed it at the end and that was it, right? Like
Cal, Cal.
Cal, right? Outside of Cal, is there another game
You
that
can
you can
argue.
pin
You can
you can
argue.
pin the loss on Peyton that you're pinning the loss on Peyton Thorne?
You can make an argument for Oklahoma, although I laid a lot of that at the coaching staff's feet.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm
an argument can be made for Oklahoma, but I
oh,
after that game, I remember my emotions after the Oklahoma game, and I was clearly blaming Hugh for a lot of what happened in the second half.
right, right. So like my point is I'm not sure there's a lot that I'm pinning on Peyton. Now, like, was he perfect? No. But that's to me, that's he's not going to be perfect. Like that was your expectation with Peyton Thorne. Um, and you needed the coaches have the coaches needed to make the right calls. I'm not sure the right calls were made. I'll die on that hill.
Right.
Um, let's see here. Again, history, Black becoming a member. We appreciate that. Um, Marshall asked the question. Or says there's an extended portal for the playoffs as well. Agreed. Yes, there is. Guys, we're coming toward the end here. I'm going to give you guys about 5 more minutes to get some super chats in if there's something that you want us to address. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, the stats that we saw last year can't hold. Now, 62.6%. That was around where Peyton was. But 1,400 yards passing, that's not going to work with this receiver group. It's not. That's not at all, Caesar. And that needs to improve greatly. Now, I wanted to make a statistical comparison here to what Peyton Thorne did last year. And when you look at the pass attempts, from both these quarterbacks, Peyton Thorne threw the ball more than that. He had 317 attempts. Now, Hugh Freeze quarterbacks normally, before he arrived at Auburn, are closer to 400 pass attempts a season. So they at least were able to get that up some. I think if he doesn't sit New Mexico and half of Arkansas, he probably ends a little closer to 350 on the season, which would be an improvement in terms of volume. But certainly 246 pass attempts, he's going to throw the ball a lot more at Auburn, I would have to think.
Yeah, he will, and he'll have his opportunities. Obviously, Hugh Freeze tried to run his offense last year in 2024. He's definitely going to try to run his offense in 2025, especially as he fills in more needs. There's going to be opportunities for Jackson Arnold to show what he can do at Auburn. So, again, I know 1,400 yards is concerning, but context matters here, guys.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's offense was a mess. It was in shambles. And a lot of people who were a part of that offensive output are no longer there. The offensive coordinator has been fired. I don't know if there's any more assistants that are gone from Oklahoma, but Oklahoma is trying to remedy that problem. And unfortunately, Jackson Arnold was a victim of a very problematic offense at Oklahoma. And again, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that things are just tremendously better at Auburn, but we have seen Hugh Freeze attempt to run his offense with Peyton Thorne, and we saw his numbers improve significantly in year two as opposed to year one when Peyton Thorne got here. So I
Mm,
expect the same to be with Jackson Arnold. The question is, Mike, when it's time to make a play, can Jackson Arnold make the play? And there were times where Peyton Thorne's numbers, while improved, there was times that he missed opportunities to make significant plays. You just got to hope that when the opportunity presents itself with Jackson Arnold, can he take advantage of it? And that's what I am looking forward to seeing moving forward.
yeah. Um, Maine says Freeze wasn't out there throwing interceptions in clutch moments. No, Maine. Freeze was calling terrible plays in clutch moments. Freeze was calling halfback passes of 50 yards in clutch moments. He was
Yeah.
calling terrible tempo plays on 3rd and 1. He was
Running,
inserting
running,
himself into the
running,
process.
running Sam Jackson at the goal line and not giving it to Jarquez. Like
Yes.
there's tons of examples of where we're looking at Hugh Freeze like, bruh, like
Yeah. No, he can't throw the passes, but it's what he's asking him to do in those clutch moments is that what's been the issue, I think.
yeah,
Michael Scusiano, Scooz, we appreciate you jumping in. Auburn was in every game, but depth and fit players are still being added in this rebuild that was created by hire and fire investment decision makers, creation, a la
a
Jet
la
Gate
Jet
and
Gate and
others after
others
that.
after.
Yeah. Look, man. I don't. I understand you were rebuilding certain parts of this team, but I want to stress this again. I'm looking at the camera when I say that 5-7 was not about a rebuild. It was not about players. Going 5-7 is about coaching. There are very few teams in our conference that don't have enough talent to go 6-6 or 7-5. Flat out, Auburn had enough talent to go 7-5. That's
Yeah,
that's the reality. And,
yeah.
and and if you disagree
I
with
mean, it
me,
showed in the
you're
games. It
wrong.
showed in the
Yeah,
games. Like you again, Oklahoma, Cal, uh, Missouri, Vandy. Like these are games that were winnable for Auburn last year alone. You're looking at a team that could have won 8 games. In my personal opinion. So again, there's certain. I don't think Auburn is far off. Looking at Auburn's record, you would think that Auburn is a ways off from where it needs to be. Auburn was very close last year at times. And so again, as you're hoping that there's a piece out of the portal, a few pieces out of the portal that can remedy some of this stuff, and Auburn can then begin to get over the hump. But you begin to see signs of hope and optimism, even though it was frustrating a lot of times, Mike, last year
Yeah.
because Auburn wasn't winning those games. I think Auburn is getting close.
Right, right, right. Well, look, lots of discussion to be had. We're going to continue this throughout the off season. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this special live edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. Look, hang tight with us. We're going to redirect you over to Locked On Auburn to continue the conversation with our good friends Zach Blackerby and Daryl Dapprich. They're going to continue this conversation here. I'm going to jump over there as well and join the conversation with you guys. Want to thank show sponsors Los Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Visit them at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama for some great Mexican food. 100 on the health score there. We appreciate Los Amigos for serving up clean eats. We appreciate that. And look, man, if you want to celebrate the Jackson Arnold signing with your woman, let Joy Mode help you out. Visit tryjoymode.com and use code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Our good friends at Joy Mode handing out a different kind of dream this holiday season. And before you do that, make sure you are Manscaped, joining the 11 million men worldwide that trust Manscaped with their personal grooming and care. Everything from the beard hedger to the electric foil trimmer, Manscaped has you covered. We're sophisticated men in a sophisticated world, Caesar, which means we don't use the same razor for our balls that we do our face. We separate the two. Jackson Arnold uses Manscaped. That's all I know. So you should use it too. Use code report to get 20% off plus free shipping. Guys, we are out of here. Jackson Arnold is an Auburn Tiger. Continue the conversation. We appreciate you guys for joining us here at the War Report. As always, War Eagle.
Real.